So the first question I'm going to throw out to the group, and I think having now seen this documentary, you'll find this an interesting question for the group. We look at these two kind of titans of theater and opera and performing arts. When that documentary was made in 1985, I mean, they were really at the height of their game. And I'm really interested in the opinions of the panel on how they think Einstein on the Beach is going to translate to a 2012 audience.
When you get to a piece like Einstein, which I would say is a modern classic or has become a modern classic, the perception of those pieces changes over time. And I think it's interesting to rediscover them. I mean, that's my business. I'm rediscovering pieces all the time. So it's not something that concerns me that much. It's more like great to have another opportunity to encounter it and get a new look at it.
This piece had such a profound influence on our collective imaginations, even if we weren't able to physically see it, because it was very difficult to see. I mean, even for someone based in Toronto.
I think both Bob and Philip are actually very excited to see how are people really going to react, because they don't really know. Does it still hold up? I mean, it is going to be a question. I mean, I think what's interesting about this particular piece is that it really is a very, very unique collaboration between two artists, and reimagining it also for a new generation of an audience, because it's also a completely new generation of performers. None of the old performers are basically part of the performance, even though we got many phone calls and from people saying they want to be involved again. But Bob and Lucinda Childs, the choreographer of the piece, and Philip made a very radical decision to say, we want to give this also to a new generation of performers.
And so I'd like for Adam, kind of coming from your creative place and Alexander's as well, do you have any specific thoughts, either directly or indirectly through their impact? Bob Wilson in particular, has he had any impact on your career? Have you been influenced by?
Sure. I mean, I think every director working has been influenced by Bob Wilson's approach, just in terms of, again, this image-based and almost, as Jorn said, a reinvention of how the process might work. I mean, you listen to Philip Glass, it's just so inspiring, I think, for young composers to have the presence of a composer who understands and is able to take apart the dramatic form so confidently because he understands it so well. He understands notions of epiphany, he's versant in it. And obviously Wilson is also someone who has very strong ideas of the form when he talks about having seen those musicals and this very clear response against convention. But it's also a response that's informed by an understanding of convention. So I think that what's inspiring really when you look at this is the intelligence of these artists.
For some pieces it's almost like redefining the form.
Yes.
For some operas that he's taken on and bring a very, very clear, I will call it narrative to it, and we can talk about that maybe, like the Lohengrin at the Met or the Pelléas that he did for Salzburg and then for the Paris Opera. They were almost like little revolutions, like a second birth of that piece for a new century, for our time.
I think what's also important about Einstein is that it's really not a narrative piece. There's no story to it. There's nothing really to understand. It's an experience that you will have, or that the audience has, and it's almost like a meditation. And it's not, Wilson's theater is not. He doesn't want the stage. He wants the audience to come to the stage and not the other way around.
So the question is, are there new elements? Are you going to see, in fact, very literally, probably, and faithfully what you just saw in the documentary?
I think Bob and Philip discussed for a little while if they should sort of do cuts in the music, because attention spans of audiences have gotten shorter, as we all know, unfortunately, even though Robert Lepage is still stretching it, and they decided not to. Which I think is the right decision. And it is going to be a completely new cast of people. So I think there's going to be a lot of there's going to be a lot of changes to the movement. I think the patterns probably of the movements will remain more or less the same.